If you had told me a few years ago that a simple $22 device, something built with parts you can get at the hardware store, could keep your entire home running for months without using one drop of gasoline, no solar panels, and with zero need to ever swap or replace the battery, I would have said you're absolutely dreaming. But what if I told you today that's exactly what's happening? No sci-fi, no snake oil, no strange incantations, just the kind of breakthrough that's so obvious and cheap, the big players absolutely do not want you to know about it. It's not going to show up on a Super Bowl ad. In fact, this is the type of homegrown innovation that flies under the radar until one day, everyone asks why we were paying thousands for something a $22 DIY hack can do. And if you're thinking it's all hype, just listen to what happened when one average guy in the Midwest decided he was tired of power outages and he got building. But before we get deep into the nuts and bolts, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss the real stories behind the headlines, the ones that don't sound flashy but might just change how you think about your bills, your power, and your own little piece of the world. Now, why is this story worth your attention, really? Imagine the lights are out, not just for an hour, but for days, maybe weeks, after a winter storm knocks down your local grid, or a summer heat wave bakes the transformers to a halt. Most of us just hope to have a few flashlight batteries around. Maybe you have a gas generator in the garage if you remembered to fill it up, but what if you could have a shoebox-sized thing, a battery technically, sitting in the corner of the basement, quietly feeding your fridge, your lights, your internet, month after month, and all you did was build it once for the price of a dinner out? I mean, let's get real. Electricity is not cheap, and outages are only getting more common. Those Tesla Powerwalls are neat, but not everyone has a spare $15,000 to drop on backup power. So could there seriously be a way to do it for $22? The story starts with a guy named Dan, a retired electrician who always kind of liked to tinker, but never managed to forget what it felt like to see his food spoil after a 3-day blackout. He wasn't a YouTuber, not a TikTok guy, just an old-school problem solver. One blustery March afternoon, after seeing yet another report about rising electric bills and rolling blackouts, Dan got fed up. He looked at the shelves in his shed, the jars filled with leftover wire and chemical odds and ends, the sort of stuff that's usually junk but always seems too useful to toss, and started sketching. What's the cheapest, safest way to keep things running, even when the rest of the block sits in the dark? He remembered something his grandfather had once shown him, the old potato battery science fair trick. But potatoes rot, and they certainly don't power fridges. Still, the seed was planted. What if he scaled up the idea, but swapped potatoes for something just a bit more practical? He kept poking around, and that's when he rediscovered the aluminum air battery. Now, this isn't exactly a brand new thing. Scientists have talked about aluminum air cells for decades. They're cheap. They last long. The chemistry is simple. You use aluminum, a basic electrolyte, and oxygen from the air. But the trick is, nobody expected it could be scaled up to run much, let alone a whole house. It's disposable, meant for military gear or backup radios. But if you looked at it differently, maybe you could stretch it further. Aluminum is everywhere. It's the most abundant metal in the Earth's crust, and soda cans are practically free if you don't mind digging through the recycling. Combine it with some salt water, a couple of carbon rods he salvaged from dead batteries, and a few bits of hardware store copper wire, and suddenly Dan had his prototype. It definitely didn't look like much. In fact, the first one was built inside a plastic storage tub, the kind you use for winter sweaters. Dan drilled holes for the air to circulate, lined up sheets of repurposed aluminum, set the carbon rods as the cathode, and just like that, the first reaction started. It bubbled a bit. There was no explosion, no sci-fi hum. But when he hooked up an old camp lantern, the bulb burned brighter and longer than any D-cell battery he ever used. Scaling that up took some trial and error. At first, it only ran a couple of lights. But as he refined the mix, adding baking soda to balance the electrolyte and spacing the aluminum sheets more efficiently, the storage box battery managed to keep his chest freezer and Wi-Fi running day after day. The cost for parts? He counted it up. Just under $22 since he reused so much, and he could have gotten it even cheaper with a little more scrounging. Still, there's one big mystery here. How can a disposable battery, something not meant to be recharged, keep working for months without any swap or refuel? It all comes down to how slowly the aluminum reacts. In Dan's design, only a tiny bit of surface area is exposed at a time, so the chemical reaction inside drips out power like a slow, steady trickle. There is no need to dump in gasoline, no lithium, no swapping in fresh cells every day. The electrolyte mix is mild enough that evaporation or contamination isn't a huge worry. Plus, a splash of distilled water brings it right back to life. As long as you don't short it out, the setup quietly keeps feeding out low and steady DC power. And when one part finally wears out, replacing it costs pennies. Basically the price of a soda can and a handful of salt. Over the winter, Dan tested his battery against every free energy claim he found on the web, except his actually worked. He He wasn't about to keep this to himself. A couple of neighbors saw the lights still on during a local outage, and soon Dan was invited to demonstrate the battery at the VFW hall. Folks came skeptical, maybe hoping for a wild magic trick. But there it was. The tub, the cables, the whirring fan, and the ancient radio playing big band tunes. When the club's wireless router got plugged in, the whole place clapped as the Wi-Fi returned, courtesy of just some kitchen junk, tied together with basic science. Nobody believed the price tag at first, but Dan passed around his receipts. Under $22, all in. Every part was either from the big box store or the recycling bin. Neighbors left that hall with diagrams scribbled on napkins and determination in their eyes. The next blackout, half of them had little plastic boxes humming away in their basements. So, if you're wondering why this isn't bigger news, you're not alone. The big companies make their money on high-tech, high-markup solutions. Lithium batteries, gas generators, fancy installations. Nobody is sending out press releases about something you can build on a slow weekend using materials nobody bothered to patent anymore. Still, the word spread the old-fashioned way, person to person, problem solver to problem solver. And pretty soon, backyard engineers, off-gridders, and storm preppers started tweaking Dan's design, posting their results on forums. One person in Florida kept their CPAP running all hurricane season. Another guy in Montana used scrap aluminum roofing and ran his solar inverter all winter, supplementing his panels with the slow, steady juice from his homemade cell. But there's still a lot of questions here. How safe is it really? Can any home use it, or is it just for lights and small gadgets? What's the science behind it, and is there a hidden catch? Let's follow the thread from Dan's invention and see where it really leads. Because as soon as word started spreading through those local circles, it became clear that a simple $22 solution wasn't just a quirky garage project. It cut to the heart of something many people didn't realize. Much of our so-called modern technology is actually just clever arrangements of old-school science, scaled up, complicated, and expensive more for profit's sake than out of necessity. The aluminum air battery was hardly new, but nobody had ever tried to stretch it out for household use. Not because it couldn't be done, but because it never lined up with the economics of the power companies and battery manufacturers. In reality, the concept is beautiful in its simplicity. Aluminum provides the electrons, air provides the oxygen, and the mild saltwater solution acts as the medium for the reaction. Now, when neighbors kept coming back to Dan with questions, his first concern was always safety. After all, mixing water, metal, and electricity isn't something to do lightly. But, as it turns out, the homemade aluminum air combo, when built in a stable plastic or glass container, is far safer than most people expect. No fire risk from flammable fuel, no risk of lithium battery runaway, and the electrolyte, a saltwater and baking soda slurry, is about as dangerous as dishwater. The only thing you might have to watch out for is the slow, gentle buildup of hydrogen if the battery is scaled way up in a sealed environment. But a few ventilation holes solve that. In fact, the safety here is a big part of why the idea started catching on not only in Dan's town, but in similar communities dealing with routine blackouts, harsh storms, or simply frustrated by the rising cost of staying plugged in. As Dan kept improving his setup, he noticed a curious effect. The battery's output didn't fall off a cliff the way normal batteries do. Instead, it stayed steady for weeks, then months, only gradually declining as the aluminum was converted into harmless aluminum hydroxide sludge. No toxic fumes, no heavy metals leaking into groundwater. When you want to restore the battery, you rinse it, replace the spent aluminum, and pour in fresh salt water. The cost for each refill is pennies, and leftover aluminum hydroxide is actually useful as a safe deodorizer for trash bins or added into garden soil. This wasn't just cheap, it was sustainable, foolproof, and as user-friendly as backup power could get. What's even more interesting is what happened when other tinkerers put the design through the ringer. See, a lot of people assumed Dan's battery was only good for LED lights or charging a phone, but after some basic tweaks, like adding a simple inverter, folks were running old laptops, countertop appliances, mini fridges, and even a small window AC unit. In the Midwest, where hard freezes make losing power a serious concern, a few families reported running small cube heaters on their DIY battery arrays. No, you won't heat the whole house or run a full-blown entertainment center, but the essential circuits? They stayed on, quietly and reliably, while more expensive setups sat idle, waiting for sun or fuel. Curiosity really ramped up when people began stacking these batteries in parallel, increasing the total watt-hour capacity. All of a sudden, what started as a quirky experiment became a modular backup system, each $22 tub adding a little more juice to the stack. As for maintenance, reports came in from families who didn't touch theirs for 3, 4, sometimes even 5 months, except to top up the water now and then. One retired couple emailed Dan that they never lost their food during the last ice storm. A young family of 5 cooked, worked from home, and kept the lights on through rolling outages all summer, using nothing fancier than 3 basement batteries and some careful circuit management. Now, naturally, a few skeptics wanted to poke holes in the story. People wondered about real-world limits, voltage, amperage, and whether this could really substitute for a professionally installed backup setup. An electrical engineer in Texas took the basic design, logged everything on a spreadsheet, and posted the results. These batteries didn't win any beauty contests, but they delivered a solid 1.5 to 2 volts per cell, just like theory said, and if you chained up enough cells, you match the desired voltage for more demanding devices. The crucial point is current, and that depends on surface area. Build big enough, which just means more strips of salvaged aluminum, and you've got the amps for things like sump pumps, routers, even short bursts to start up something with a motor. The best part about these community experiments wasn't just that the batteries worked, it was the way people kept tweaking and improving. Someone figured out they could shape the aluminum strips in a zigzag, giving more surface area in a small tub. Others learned to use rainwater or slightly salty well water when making the electrolyte, saving even more on costs when every penny counts. Someone posted blueprints for a kid-safe battery using food-grade containers and low-power LED strips for emergency nightlights, and parents reported using them as science projects, teaching kids about chemistry, electricity, and resilience without spending more than an afternoon's allowance. But there was a twist. As more people got involved, questions started flying on the forums. Was there an even better metal than aluminum? Could this chemistry be adapted to store solar power or work with wind setups? A few groups of amateur engineers experimented with magnesium strips as the anode. Magnesium is more reactive than aluminum, so it gives off more energy per gram, but it's harder to find in bulk scrap. Still, the experiments showed promise, and a new community of DIY battery hackers was born. People from as far away as India and parts of rural Africa chimed in, sharing pictures of homemade batteries running radios, phone chargers, even small irrigation pumps, all based on the same $22 blueprint. If you're sitting there wondering about the economics, does a DIY battery stack really make a dent in the monthly bill? The answer is not a simple yes or no, but the number surprised most folks. On average, a single $22 battery could power 100 to 150 watt-hours per day, sometimes more depending on the design. That might not sound like a lot, but over a month, that's enough to keep essentials ticking in the typical off-grid cabin, backup fridge, or small home office. Stack up 4 or 5, and you're covering the basics for a family in an outage, for less than the cost of a fancy dinner out. Critically, none of this is meant to fully replace grid power. Nobody's throwing out their service drop or switching the whole house over. But why give up hard-earned cash so quickly when a minimalist, home-built battery setup deals with emergencies, shaves power during peak rates, or just gives you peace of mind for pennies on the dollar? That's the part utility companies don't want you pondering. That home power independence doesn't require brand new technology, it just takes a simple, overlooked tweak to the chemistry set in your garage. But the best stories were coming out of people who took Dan's method and personalized it. A high school science club wired a whole bank of tubs to light up their gym for a STEM fair. A retiree in Seattle built a rolling power cart for disaster relief, showing up to hot, powerless neighborhoods with a bucket of batteries and charging phones by the dozen. No corporate logos, no government grant, just simple parts, curiosity, and willpower. Of course, there are always bumps in the road. Some folks ran into corrosion issues if the batteries weren't rinsed every few months. Others learned not to store the batteries somewhere too hot or cold. A few tried to improve the design with off-label chemicals and ended up making things more complicated or dangerous. But the core lesson stuck. As long as you kept it simple, food-grade salt, laundry aluminum, carbon rods from old flashlights, the build was solid, safe, and dependable, even for people with barely more than a screwdriver and kitchen funnel. So, where does this leave us when it comes to the future of cheap, renewable, and easy backup power? The big questions are still on the table. Can a movement this simple scale up and address some of the giant problems dogging the power industry? Or is it destined to remain a homegrown fix, known mostly among tinkerers and disaster preppers, while most folks stick to the familiar and expensive gadgets marketed on late-night TV? And what could happen if a global DIY community kept improving on Dan's original humble idea? The answers are closer than you might think. All of this might sound almost too simple to be true, but that's the charm of Dan's $22 battery. Its brilliance is in how ordinary it feels. For once, the solution to a major expensive problem doesn't involve waiting for a new law, a corporate rollout, or a miracle breakthrough from a Silicon Valley lab. It's sitting there in the parts aisle, on the kitchen counter, in a recycling bin. The beauty is that almost anyone, anywhere, with the right sense of curiosity and a streak of stubbornness, can build it. But let's be honest, it doesn't solve every problem. No single DIY trick is going to fix an entire nation's energy system overnight. Still, this is where the story gets really interesting, because the idea is infectious. Once someone sees a neighbor running their fridge for almost nothing, never worrying about blackout spaghetti in the freezer, you start to see questions spread faster than any official announcement possibly could. How did you get your router running during the storm? Are the lights on at your house? And really, you built it for what, $22? Suddenly, people who never thought of themselves as tech people are down in the basement, sheet of aluminum foil in hand, wading through saltwater solutions, swapping tips about garden-grade carbon rods for better efficiency. What Dan sparked in his small Midwest community has started subtly to ripple out across the USA and the world. It's already found its way to rural schools in Africa, off-grid clinics in Southeast Asia, and mountain cabins from the Appalachians to the Alps. Why? Because this isn't top-down change. It's grassroots, step by step, people seeing something work and wanting to pass it on. The economics can't be beat, and that's what makes it such a challenge to the big providers. When the battery dies, you toss a couple sheets of old soda can aluminum in, refill with salt water, and you're right back in business. No expensive battery swap, no waiting for lithium from China, no monthly fee, no oil, no gas. The parts are available in almost any country, and with every version, users get better, the designs get more efficient, and the only limit becomes your willingness to tinker. So, where does this homegrown revolution go from here? A lot depends on what people do next. Sure, Dan has now helped build dozens of these batteries for friends, churches, and summer camps, but the real future lies with the next wave of backyard inventors. People who improve the electrolyte formula, figure out a way to automate topping up the water, or link it to their existing solar system for a hybrid solution. Imagine if every house on your street had even one homemade power bucket hidden away, ready to handle the next blackout. Suddenly, emergencies just aren't as stressful. Imagine if apartment dwellers learned how to join up for communal backups in the laundry room, or if the next big school science fair was a contest to see whose $10 battery could run the most devices for the longest. It doesn't sound dramatic, but it's the kind of silent, steady change that ends up moving whole communities forward. Of course, the big companies will keep selling their fancy, ready-made backups, and that's fine. There will always be a market for plug-and-play convenience. But for a growing number of people, something as basic as Dan's aluminum air invention is more than just a backup. It's a shift in who has the power, literally. For the first time in ages, people feel like they can at least control something when it comes to energy. The price, the source, even what happens in an outage. Some folks have turned it into a business, helping neighbors set up systems and passing on what they've learned. Others share their mistakes, and every version gets a bit better, a bit safer, a bit more efficient than before. And that's what's so compelling. And this isn't a story about a patent or a product. It's a story about ownership, resilience, and know-how. You don't need a PhD to follow some diagrams, watch your local hardware flyer, and get a bit wet setting up a tub of electrolyte. But with every project, you're learning, adapting, and realizing that big solutions don't always need big spending. The biggest catch? Once you've seen it work, you can't unsee it. And it's hard to keep quiet when you've got something this useful to share. Every power grid in the world would be more reliable and every town more confident if folks could handle their own basics when the lights go out. So here's the real takeaway. It's not about replacing the grid or running your whole property off a $22 home-built battery. It's about reclaiming just a little bit of certainty in an uncertain world. It's about making sure you don't have to lose hundreds of dollars worth of food or sleep in the dark just because a transformer failed 3 blocks over. And maybe, just maybe, it's about creating a ripple of small, practical knowledge that could add up to something pretty big one day. Now, you've heard the story. You've seen just how far a little ingenuity and a few hardware store parts can go. But what I'm really curious about is you. Have you ever tried a backyard energy experiment? Could you see yourself building something like this aluminum air battery? Or maybe you've got your own version or twist on the idea. I want you to drop your take in the comments below. Tell us how you'd improve on Dan's design, what you'd run in an emergency, or just let me know if you think this is genius or too good to be true. And if you found the story as surprising or as thought-provoking as I did, hit share right now so more people can find out what a few dollars and a bit of curiosity can really do for their home. The best ideas don't always look flashy at first, but they're often the ones that last. Until next time, this has been Boring Economic Update, keeping you powered up with the stories that matter, even when the grid goes down.